Giving a group of small, generalized wildlife free rein over an immense landscape guarantees that there will be innovation and diversification. In a word, evolution. The intermixing of animals, especially those that hunt similar prey or eat similar vegetation, often leads from interaction to competition, as they vie for the same resources and territory. Where the lifestyles of small animals are not suppressed by their larger neighbors, opportunism becomes a favorable trait. Animals quickly push the boundaries as they exploit their environments. They radiate into new surroundings and habitats and diversify, evolving into new wildlife in the process. After a modest beginning at the start of the Triassic, the reptiles that survived the Permian extinctions were beginning to diversify, and conditions appeared that would give them a leg up on their amphibian neighbors. As the centuries of the early Triassic wore on, Pangaea began to creep slowly northward until it lay right across the equator. Although wetlands were still widespread, the vast lowland bayous and swamps of giant-scale trees, ferns, and tree-sized horsetails that had dominated the supercontinent for so long were slowly disappearing. As the period progressed, large arid areas began to appear, especially in the interiors of the immense landmass. Cut off from moisture-laden marine air, parts of the supercontinent began to dry out. Hardier ferns and gymnosperms, plants with thick needle-like leaves and scales and woody bark to conserve water, became more common. In addition, their embryos were contained in seeds that could remain dormant until conditions were right for growth. As Pangaea's climate became more arid, reptile groups quickly showed themselves to be up to the challenges of the newer habitats. More and more, they began to replace amphibians in many ecological roles. Amphibians found refuge in some marginal environments, usually the wetter coastal plains and the ever-diminishing wetlands, and tried to reorganize and regroup by evolving to meet the demands of the habitats in which they remained. But even though some were changing into predominantly terrestrial forms, complete with armor, their reproductive strategies were still tied to wetlands. The reptiles adapted better to the increasingly widespread drier areas. One of the most important reasons for their success was the shelled egg. Those animals that used this innovative egg had a bigger advantage in taking control of the new drier environs, since shelled eggs can be laid anywhere on land. Such eggs meant that reptiles were no longer tied to the water to reproduce, so they could move into areas that amphibians had found off-limits. As the supercontinent drifted toward the tropics, these animals found themselves well situated to take advantage of the changed environments.